Recording in progress.
Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about this article, Translanguaging as Dynamic Activity Flows in CLIL Classrooms. So, CLIL stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning. This article is by Professor Lin Mi He Angel and Pei-Sheng He. So, let's see what this article is about. So here is an introduction to the writers. Professor Angel M. Lin is a leading scholar in the fields of English language education and critical literacies. Since the late 1990s, she has conducted impactful classroom research projects in Hong Kong schools. Her research expertise spans second language education, discourse analysis, translanguaging, transsemitizing, content and language integrated learning, decoloniality, and critical media literacies. Dr. Peshang shares similar interests and she works at the University of Hong Kong as well. So, what's this article about? This article is about an investigation into translanguaging practices in a Hong Kong secondary school under a school university collaboration project on content and language integrated learning. The students in this study are from South Asian ethnic minoritized communities of Pakistanis, Nepalis, and Indians. The languages that this article talks about are Cantonese, English, Putonghua, which is a standard form of Chinese Mandarin, and the sister languages Urdu and Hindi. South Asian students in Hong Kong are sometimes, discriminated against on the basis of race, and the main goal of the government of Hong Kong is to assimilate them into Cantonese speaking cultures. So the school under study is it's mostly about these bilingual South Asian students, and the academic and working languages are either English or Cantonese. So the South Asian students' community languages are limited to daily conversations between South Asian students and the few teachers from their own communities. Despite such a language policy, students tend to exploit multilingual and multimodal resources available in their learning. This article describes how their translanguaging practices can have valuable pedagogical and identity affirming functions. So the school has a very strict English medium instruction policy. The teachers and the students must speak only English. So the monolingual rule holds sway. So before we go further, let's look at some terms here. Translanguaging is defined by the writers through another writer, and it is a Welsh inspired term, and it is used to describe the multiple discursive practices in which bilinguals engage in order to make sense of their bilingual words. So, what is dynamic activity flows? It refers to ever changing and fluid ways in which language and communication evolve within different contexts. So, Khalil is content and language integrated learning. I included this slide about the theoretical underpinnings of this article, but due to the paucity of time, I'm just going ahead with the main subject matter. So, what's this study about and what's the methodology used? This study is about secondary 3, grade 9 as class in the CLIL project, where they use English as a medium of instruction. So focal class was composed of 14 girls from Pakistani and Indian families. The teacher participant, Miss Yip, which is a pseudonym, was a local Cantonese who taught biology and integrated science for both English medium instruction and Chinese medium instruction, Chinese as a medium of instruction. The second author also worked as the teaching consultant of the Khalil project, and was stationed in the school to provide pedagogical support for the South Asian students in the participating classes. So, this study was conducted 3 days a week for a whole school year. The method used was ethnographic and naturalistic observations, classroom instructions, but also the routine activities of teachers and students on campus. All lessons were observed and videotaped by the teaching consultant and researcher. A total of 13 lessons, 70 minutes each, of the focal class were collected. Two South Asian students from the focal class were later invited to an interview. The students also wrote down a brief English glossary of the Urdu phrases. So, what are the themes? The themes that emerge from the analysis of transcripts of the video scenarios and the students' work with the translanguaging and transimitizing texts, the following main themes emerged. Translanguaging in pedagogical scaffolding, translanguaging in identity affirming, and translanguaging as dynamic activity flows in CLIL classrooms. So here is an excerpt from the lesson, um, and the teacher was trying to teach them the human digestive system as a biology teacher. So this is lesson excerpt one, Hazam Hazam. It's our language. The teacher started the lesson by reviewing the video, and the students had watched in the previous lesson. During the recap, one student mentioned the phrase digestive system, which is the topic of the lesson. So the teacher says, "So you talked about this word, okay, digestive system?" And first student says, "Yeah." The teacher then wrote on the blackboard digestive system and tried to emphasize the meaning of the subject specific word digestive. So, what is digestive? It means digest, first student says. And all students laugh at this. And then teacher says digest. Yeah, actually, the root word is digest. So, teacher wrote digest on the blackboard below the word digestive. Teacher says, but what is the meaning of digest? And one student says, hazam, hazam. What is hazam? So teacher was smiling, apparently encouraging student one to say more about the word because she was using the Urdu translation of the word digest. And student one says, it's our language. And teacher says, your language? Okay, but I don't know your language. So second student says, process some big food into small particles. And the teacher says, yeah, exactly. So we try to break down things, just like a samosa. So here is another lesson excerpt. Concave means going down. The teacher was introducing the shape of red blood cells to the students. She was filling in the worksheet table together with the students. The teacher mentioned donut to illustrate the biconcave shape of the red blood cells and drew a biconcave shape on the worksheet, projected via the visualizer to show a biconcave shape. So the teacher says, all right, the name of this shape is called biconcave. The teacher wrote the word biconcave beneath a biconcave shape that she had just drawn on the worksheet. So the first student says biconcave, teacher says by means, and all the students say two. And the teacher says two, like bicycle. And the first student says, yeah. And the teacher says, so yeah, concave means, and while gesturing down shape, going down. And she writes the word in Cantonese. And student two says, somewhere is thinner. Teacher says, yes, this part is concave, pointing to the center of the biconcave shape on the screen. So now in the middle part, that means in the middle part is thinner, gesturing thinner. So in lesson, here is another excerpt. they are referring to camels. Don't eat meat, of course, and oont. So student one says the examples for herbivores are cows. Teacher says cows, and first student says camels. Student two says goat. Student one says camel. Teacher says goat, camels. I'm not sure whether camels only eat grass. And student one says, yeah, they don't eat meat, of course. Oont. So they are using this word oont, camel, which is the Urdu word for camel. The teacher, of course, she's not she doesn't live in an environment where she would know a lot about camels, but the South Asian students, they have their own linguistic repertoire, and they easily recognize from the picture that the teacher is talking about oont or camel. So the teacher is like, of course, she doesn't understand the word. She says, "Oh, oont," and the third student says, "Yeah, we call it oont in our language." So notice the word with the identity confirming and identity affirming phrase, in our language. Oh, I see. That's why I don't understand. The teacher smiled. And first student laughs, and another student five, which has been called student five here, again repeats the Urdu word oont. So here are a few observations that the authors have given us. So observation one is about translanguaging as a peer learning strategy, affirmation of identity through mutual support. During the recess, the little teacher, so here a student is actually acting like a teacher. They are talking among themselves, and now they are free to use their tongue, Urdu, as a medium of instruction, medium of interaction, in fact. And she's explaining to her peers the key concepts that in the handout given to them by their teacher. So the little teacher had to also make use of gestures to supplement her spoken language during her explaining of the abstract science concepts. So when we're talking about gestures, the use of gestures, so this is trans-Semitizing. They provided a source of empowerment that enabled them to affirm their identity through mutual sharing and support against the broader society in which their ethnic identity has often been marginalized. Observation two is translanguaging in identity affirmation through the utilizing of one's multilingual abilities and multi-intelligences. So in different, because the teacher, the researcher, one of the researchers, she was also meeting them outside the classroom, the other teachers, the students, and she participated in many school ceremonies where the students showcase their multi-intelligences. So when you're learning a language, it's not only about one particular skill, it's also about other things. For example, their musical, rhythmic, and harmonic intelligences, as well as their bodily and kinesthetic intelligence. They also came up with different. They showed their musical ability. They showed their dancing skills, and in the posters, decorations, they showed their artistic skills in henna designs, for example. And the students also show their drawing ability, and they also showcase their beautiful Chinese handwriting. So here is another excerpt: how to say right. When the teacher was guiding students to fill in the blank with the word will I, which is a plural of willas, she wanted to emphasize the special plural form of the noun willas. The sentence they were reading was: the inner wall is highly folded with many finger like structures called, and then there was this blank. They are called, the teacher says, and the students say, will I. When learning to distinguish the difference between will I and will S, the students created a naughty trick with the word will I, which sounds similar to the sentence starter, will I. Now, when the teacher mentioned this word again, they started to play with the word will I by making jokes out of its pronunciation. So, student one says, we like. Student two says, I don't like. Student one says, we like. Student three says, we don't like. And student four shoots, you also like. And student five says, no. So, they make a joke out of it. To calm down the students, the teacher used the students L1. So teacher says, chup, chup. So although the teacher is Cantonese speaking and she has to teach in English, she has learned a couple of words, from her students. So she's using the Urdu word chup, chup, which means silent, silent. Uh, so student five says chup, and student six says, Miss, it should be plural. S. And teacher says, all right. Here, pointing to the word structures on the visualizer, because there is an S, so it should be the plural form. The teacher wanted to remind the students to write down the grammatical answer on their worksheet, and she wanted to give the instruction in the student's first language. As she forgot how to say the word right, she went to one student and asked, teacher says, all right, how to say right? And student two says, ठीक है, ठीक है. So here is a misunderstanding because write Right and write as Write. So the teacher was probably she wanted to she used the word right as in Right as but the student says ठीक है. So she translates it right. Assuming the teacher was asking for the word right, the students taught her the word ठीक है, meaning right in English. Then another student six, she says, likho, likho. And teacher says, theek hai. So student two says, right. You want right? And then the teacher says, right. So feeling that the pronunciation sounds a bit different from the word she had learned before, the teacher made a gesture of writing. And then student three says, likho. Now they understand that the teacher wants them to write. Likho. So likho means in Urdu, likho means right. Uh, so teacher says likho. All right. Chup likho. So now the teacher has learned two words. So now we come to the conclusion. Translanguaging as dynamic activity flows. The study challenges the monolingual pedagogical principle, values translanguaging as pedagogical scaffolding, resources, and opportunities for identity affirmation. And it draws upon Lemke's explication of translanguaging and flows. Speech, action, events are seen as unfolding activities across multiple material media and multiple time scales during which meaning making is achieved through organized and coordinated entertainment of both bodies and a variety of artifacts and elements of the setting involved. Seeing translanguaging, so they see translanguaging as inherent in dynamic speech action events and effective learning activities. CLIL teachers can be guilt free. So when they employ all the whole of the students' linguistic repertoire, and when the teachers are okay if the students use their first language, the teachers can also be guilt free. So this brings us to the end of this presentation. I have a discussion question for you. Think of a translanguaging experience you had as a bilingual or multilingual and discuss it with your peers. Thank you very much.